Well, hello and welcome to a birthday edition of Hey, It's the Luskos.
Birthday edition.
Your birthday,
it's my
to
birthday.
be exact.
41.
If I had two foghorns, I would blow them. Why
That's
is
good
that
enough,
why is that a
honestly.
birthday sound?
I don't know,
Maybe a
because it really is a horrible sound.
Vuvuzela? Jennie, happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
Today is January 11th, 2023, which means it's your birthday.
Yes.
It's your birthday. Like
Thank
Thor
you.
Ragnarok. It's your, like I have a button. It's your birthday.
Thank you.
I love you.
41. And happy birthday to Last Supper on the Moon.
1 year.
It's Last Supper on the Moon's first birthday.
Yeah. You were kind enough to let me release a book on your birthday.
Oh, it was so fun last year.
It made shopping easy. I knew just what to get you.
But it was fun. Like, we went to our favorite Mexican restaurant and celebrated.
Did you say Mexican restaurant?
Mexican restaurant.
Mexican restaurant?
And celebrated my birthday and the book. And it was so fun. It was the perfect day.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what else we did. What did we do for the book release that day?
I don't know if it was that day, but we filmed with Brooke Ledgerwood.
That's
and that
right.
was, I don't know if we released anything that day, but I
From
know.
The Rock. We did a recording.
We filmed it later on that week.
I think we did some moonwalks. I walked around in the snow with a bunch of people talking about the moon.
Yeah.
Well, as one does. Well, anyhow, this is not about the book. It's about you. Happy birthday. Do you have any big thoughts about your year with all this newfound wisdom? You're highfalutin. This is the half of the year where you're older than me.
Yeah.
I always like to pretend you're really old during this half.
So much older than
I have
you.
to talk loud so you can hear me and say stuff like, "Oh, sorry, that wasn't in your good ear."
It is actually helpful when you talk loud.
And then I catch up, and we're the same age for the second half of the year always.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you marry someone who's a senior citizen, ladies and gentlemen. Jennie's 6 months older than me.
41. I honestly feel like God's been leading me in his voice, like seeking his voice, and in turn learning more and more of what my voice is because of his voice in my life and what he has me to speak and say. And I feel like as we were reading through the Bible in a year last year, I would just see his voice or your voice or whatever. And I just kind of circle that. And it was just kind of something that I felt like God was stirring up in me. So I just feel like I'm going to go deeper in God's voice and continue the kind of word from last year, excavate what that looks like for me and my voice, and being faithful with what God's given me to speak and to say and to whatever that looks like. So.
Well, you have a tremendous voice. I've always loved listening to you. Everyone always comments how calming and soothing and pleasant your voice is on voiceovers, your audiobook work. And so I can't wait for that to get louder. I've been just watching God steadily raise the volume on your life. And I'm grateful I get to hear your voice more than anybody else. And I look forward to hearing it more than anybody else.
Thank you. Well, and with that, my prayer is more and more my tone and how I speak, and thank you for championing me.
Come on. Well, happy birthday, love.
Thanks.
And all of you listening, thanks for checking this podcast out. Today we have our friends Pastor Alex and Pastor Henry Seeley on. They lead an amazing move of God called the Belonging Co. Out of Nashville, Tennessee, but really has reached around the world through their music, their writing, their sermons. They're some of the most creative leaders I know. And if you're if you're looking to grow in your marriage, this conversation is going to help you, but also just seeing life differently and really following the journey of following God.
Yeah. I think because I only have been to their church once, which is crazy. You've been there multiple times to speak and maybe I've been there twice. Anyways, all that to say, there is a special sound coming out of their church, and how they lead together is so beautiful, and I feel like so unique, and the humility, how they submit to each other, and it's just really beautiful. I don't know if I've ever seen anything quite like it, but they're just so special, and their hearts are so pure, and they just love building the kingdom. And
the first time we went to speak for them, it was during a snowstorm.
Oh,
and
that's
they
right.
didn't have their building open yet, so they were meeting at a building that Michael W. Smith owns called Rocket Town. and the snow was so bad in Tennessee. Of course, ironically, we flew in from Montana where there was probably twice as much snow on the ground, but they don't have good plows and all that in Tennessee. So the ice on the road, it shut the city down. It was like martial law.
Yeah.
You couldn't go anywhere. So we ended up just recording the sermon for the church in an empty building. It was like almost eerily pre-COVID.
True.
You know, because
that was 2019.
They just brought the staff in and we preached to an empty room, and then they played it to the church. And then we just hunkered down in a bunker with the Seeleys. It was a hotel. And we just ate and hung out and we couldn't go anywhere.
But I think we were also on the Daniel diet. So
we sure were.
It was
just carrot sticks and green juice. Well, it was a lot of fun. It was a kick. It was the first time we'd ever met them. And we've just become fast friends the last 4 years.
They mean so much
19,
to us.
20, 21, 22. Geez, we've made, it must have been earlier than 19. That first time.
Maybe
18. But anyhow, they're special. They're fantastic. And I think there's a lot that they have to share that you're going to be blessed by. So thanks for listening. And please do enjoy this conversation, this birthday edition of Hey, It's the Luskos with Henry and Alex Seeley. Oh, well, Henry and Alex Seeley, it's about darn time you come on. Hey, it's the Luskos. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Love you guys.
We're so glad to be with you. So
Yay!
glad.
You guys are just some of the most stylish people. And I did say, for those who are listening on audio, you won't understand this, but the set, the vibe, the outfits, the fern. I mean, we are talking primo conversation here.
That's actually fake, guys. Let's just be real. That's fake.
Let's just be real. Are you on the Be Real train, by the way? You guys doing the
Wow. No.
What's that?
The app?
She doesn't even know.
Oh,
It's this new social media that
I'm not on it.
Jenny's not on. Are you on it, Henry?
No. I should be on it,
like
but I'm not.
once a day at a random time, it goes off. You have to take a picture of whatever you're looking at, and then it takes a picture of you no matter what you're looking at. And if you don't take it when it says to, it tells everybody how late you were. The idea is like curated authenticity, among everybody.
Yes, I think my daughter's on this with my assistant because we were in Boston. She goes, I have to do that's what it was. Be real, right?
Yeah.
I have to do my Be
The
real.
fun thing about it is that it tells your followers how many takes you do. So if you don't put your first picture up, it says they took this 3 times. So I always end up looking like I have 50 chins because I can't get the angle right. And literally you just have to post it. And then the other thing is if you wait an hour from when it goes off, it tells them that. So the funny thing is if you're with other people when it goes off, everyone simultaneously kind of has to take their Be Real right then.
Wow.
Oh my
What happens if
word.
you're in the bathroom though? I mean, that's
I think you get a 2-minute grace period before you're late.
Wow.
So you get 2 minutes, baby.
That's just too much. Too much stress.
Yeah.
I can't handle
Too
that.
much.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not on it.
I will say the
I'm not
idea
on
of Be Real is nice. That it's not like everything's photo brushed and air shopped and photoshopped and airbrushed. Is what I was trying to say.
Photo brush
It's Monday.
and air shop.
It's okay.
It's Monday.
It's okay. We got you.
We're gonna get there. So we're of course going to talk about marriage today. We're in a kick right now where we're just talking about relationships, marriages, and you guys have a marriage that we just so profoundly look up to, honestly. But I thought we would just sort of get to know you guys a little bit. Of course, many of our listeners are familiar with your ministry, both the church, Belonging Co., the music, as well as the books. Pastor Alex, you've written 2 books, The Opposite Life as well as Tailor Made. And, so a lot of people are familiar with you. But for those who aren't, could we just sort of maybe just start off? You guys are both living in Nashville currently, but from Australia, correct?
Yeah, we born and raised in Australia, and we're part of a ministry there on staff at a church for many years, and doing good things, I guess. And then God really just stirred our hearts in the early, kind of around 2010. We started the journey to relocate to the U.S. and ended up in Nashville in April of 2012, and really just had no idea why God was stirring our hearts to move here. And it was a long journey and a lot of wrestle with not a lot of answers except for God saying, you got to go. And I was like, that's not cool. I need to know before I go. And God's like, that's not how I roll. So we just had to trust God. And, it's a crazy story, but we moved to Nashville in April of 2012. and really had absolutely no idea why we were here. Didn't know anyone in Nashville, and sold everything we owned basically, except for my studio gear. Drag all that over to Nashville. I set up shop.
I presume you didn't drive
basement.
that over to Nashville from Australia.
Someone's actually asked me that, you know.
No, we put that on a boat, and that came a couple months later. But yeah, I just set up in the basement of the house that we were living in and started mixing records and producing stuff for people. And through that, we just got to know quite a few people in the music community here in Nashville, and found that a lot of them, just because of the touring schedules, a lot of them were away on the weekends. And so there was a lot of people doing amazing things for God, but were never, hardly ever in church. They didn't really have a church community just because they were gone when most churches in Nashville were kind of meeting. And after about 6 months of kind of witnessing this and hearing the same story over and over and over, we were praying, just saying, God, somebody needs to do something about this. And he was like, yeah. Wow. We were like, absolutely not.
Wow. So,
but we, out of a step of obedience, just started gathering in our home on a Tuesday night with some of these beautiful musician types, and accidentally started a church. So
wow. Okay. So were you guys in Australia? It wasn't in your heart to start a church in America. You just felt the call with, like you said, not a lot of answers or like details. You just came to Nashville.
Yeah, honestly, if we knew that we were going to start a church, we probably wouldn't have come here.
We wouldn't.
We love it now, but the idea of it, the thought of it back then, I mean, I had never, I've been a worship pastor and, creative guy my whole life. Alex was in pastoral ministry, and we loved serving our pastors. We never saw ourselves as number ones. We feel like we're really great number twos. And that was part of the wrestle when we felt God leading this. And, for a whole year we met in our home, still not believing that it was going to be a church. We just thought it was this Tuesday night discipleship group for these musicians. Alex and I were going to different churches, or we were going together to different churches on Sundays.
Separated on Sundays.
Let's maybe say that. Trying to find a church to plant.
Yes.
Yeah, you're like, all right, bye, honey. You guys each go out the door.
I mean, there was a little bit of that.
We laugh, but there literally are. We've all seen it. Married couples that do that. Yeah. Which is probably.
Which is, we should talk about that, because that's not going to foster a healthy marriage.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? There's some great churches here in Nashville, but we just didn't find anything that felt like home for us. And so a year into it, we ended up birthing this thing called The Belonging Co. And
it's actually 10 years this week.
Oh my God.
Since we had our first Tuesday night.
Our first Tuesday night service ever in our house.
A decade of The Belonging Co.
Yeah.
Praise God. And I will say this, it is like nothing we've ever experienced.
Honestly,
the church that Jesus is building worldwide is we're the greatest fans of, but we love the unique expressions of it, and that the texture, the beauty, the sound, the feel of The Belonging Co. is literally. I'll get texts every once in a while from maybe pastors who are looking to build a church or just kind of thinking about starting, and they'll sometimes ask, and I think it's a great question, what churches, I'm going to go visit some different churches around the country, which ones would you think I should go to? And I always say, without fail, among a few others, go see The Belonging Co. Because the unique DNA, it's not a carbon copy of any church. No. It is this unique, down to the feel of it, down to the doorknobs and the nursing mother's room. I mean, it's just
oh my gosh,
it is
you guys,
bespoke, and it is quintessentially YouTube.
Level.
It's Seeleys through and through.
Yeah.
And it's honestly,
I love that.
If we weren't pastoring a church or mixing records, we probably would be in some form of design.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know what's funny is that we had our fall carnival in our parking lot a couple of weeks ago, and we had the neighborhood people actually attend that don't go to church. So unchurched people that live around this area. And when they came, they went, oh, this is a church? We always thought this was a design firm.
And it does.
That is the best compliment ever.
No. Interior design, but spiritual interior.
Yes.
We're probably not doing a good enough job to put a big cross at the at the entrance.
Let me say,
something.
the first time I'd ever encountered black traffic cones was at your church. And I literally was like, if Batman had a traffic cone, it would be this one. And, part of my brain was like, it actually defeats the purpose of a traffic cone at a certain point. So it blends in with everything around it. I said, however, leave it to the stinking belonging co. And I text my staff, I'm like, how did we not know there's black traffic cones? Get them immediately.
That is amazing. My team know me well.
Oh, that is so
do these come in black? Sir, they're traffic cones. No, they don't. Give me black ones. Okay. I don't think they do that. Find me a black one.
Reflective black. If you could reflective black, that would be amazing.
No, but truly, I mean, I love how you said that, Henry, because you yourselves live so beautifully, and you have such strong, beautiful interior design in your hearts, in your home. Your home is beautiful. I've only seen the pictures. But I remember
still waiting for an invite over.
Guys,
she says I've only seen pictures. Like, talk about fishing for a dinner invitation, Jennie.
I was not.
Wow.
No, guys, we would love for you.
Oh my gosh, I was not
she said,
fishing.
Only seen pictures. I've been stalking you. Only seen Google Maps.
No, because I think you were out here.
My friends have been, but I've just seen pictures.
I've only photographed you eating from the outside, from the lawn.
Guys, you're coming for dinner.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, how long are you here for? Oh, no, we can't. Okay.
Publicly.
Anyway.
No, okay, because when you were out here with us, I think it was 2018, I think you were building and designing your house. And
yes, that's
so
true.
I got all the
That's
kind of
true.
back behind the scenes, dreams and things. But all that to say, who you are is also the DNA of your church as well. Obviously, Jesus is the head and the center, but it's just like Levi was saying, it's so beautiful to see how who you are in the interior design and strength and grit and beauty of who you are really is expressed in the house, the church that God's allowing you to build and to lead. And I'm always thinking, what would Alex and Henry do? What would they do in this situation? And anyways, we adore you.
We love it.
Wow,
we love
thank
you so much.
And that feeling is definitely mutual because we have learned so much from you guys. So thank you.
To continue to pick at it a little bit, you in passing said, we knew we needed to leave Australia. God was guiding us to America and eventually Nashville. For the person who's listening, who's like, what does that look like? Because obviously you had more questions than you had answers, but you did obviously have enough to go on that caused you to get green cards and get visas and, relocate literally from across the world. So what did that look like to you to make you know, hey, this is something God's in enough to where we're actually going to take action on it?
Yeah, well, I think for us, it was a 2-year process. And I think sometimes people get this, word or they get this unction to go and they just don't plan well. We took our pastors and our leaders on a journey because we were literally going, okay, we feel this stirring. Henry got it first. And, we're talking marriage here and I was not caught up to it. So I was committed to pray into it because I'm thinking, okay, if Henry's got this burden that there's a season shift and he feels like it's America, that's a big move. We've got 2 little kids and we've been part of this church since we were children. Well, I'd been part of the same church since I was 11.
Wow.
It's not just something you up and leave. And so I got to praying and then we honestly just asked the Lord for confirmations along the way. And when we sought counsel from our pastors, they were like, okay, well, let's put a little fleece out. I know some people think that's a ridiculous thing to do, but it was kind of a confirmation thing for us. And so applying for that green card and getting that green card was a huge door opener for us. But, we asked the Lord, we inquired of the Lord. We got the word of the Lord in Scripture. We got prophetic words where people who didn't know us confirmed those words. And then, we knew that if we'd sold our house, we've got enough money to live on for this amount of time. So we did everything with wisdom, but we did it in prayer. We did it in wise counsel. And then we allowed God to order the steps. And so I think there's always a process in when you're making a huge life change like that you just don't on a whim go, oh, I'm just going to, move to Alaska and not really think it through. And then I actually allow God to open those doors for you.
Yeah. I think with that, we obviously, we didn't have a plan per se, but we weren't, we're the kind of people that we're not just going to sit around and do nothing. You know, you meet some people like, I'm just waiting on the Lord, and God's saying, actually, you know, the Bible says the steps of a good man or a good woman are ordered by the Lord. God can't order your steps if you're not walking. You know, like if you're sitting on your butt doing nothing, God, there's not much for God to work with. And so we were prepared, even though we didn't know exactly what we were going to be doing. We knew, like, whatever it is, whatever we need to do. You know, I was like, what am I going to do when we get here? And 3 days later, I got a phone call to go and mix somebody's record. And I said, yes. I wasn't like, well, you know, I'm still waiting on God to show us the whole plan. It was like, this is the first step. So I'm going to take the first step. And even though now I'm not really mixing records anymore, that was part of the journey to get to this place that we're in now. And so I think it's just those small steps of obedience along the way and trusting God.
Yes.
And, you know, there were people that thought we were crazy. You know, we'd been part of quite a significant ministry in Australia for a long time. We'd served our pastors for 20 years, almost 20 years by the time we left. And, you know, people would say, well, God doesn't call you from something big to something small. You know, God doesn't take you from a ministry of 10,000 people to 10 people in your basement. And I'm like, have you ever read about Gideon? You know, like, have you ever read about some of these amazing people in the Bible where, you know, God was like, it's good what you've been doing, but unless we take this all the way back down, I'm not going to get any glory. So let's just bring it all the way back down and let me build something where I can get some glory. So that's been our journey.
I love that. I mean,
beautiful.
The miracle of the feeding of the 4,000 comes after the feeding of the 5,000. So it's not like Jesus, like, it has to get further up and up and to the left.
Right.
You know, it's like, and even the Samaria story of Philip, and he's revivals in Samaria, but he has this sneaking suspicion he's supposed to go out to the middle of nowhere, right?
Yes.
And there's that Ethiopian eunuch. So I only say that because, you know, the same thing for us. We were ministering in California, and someone, when we asked for, you know, hey, what do you think about Montana? He said, you're here ministering to thousands. Why would you go there where even if it does go great, it's only going to probably ever be hundreds? You know, it's like, even if that's not true, even if that was true, who's to say God couldn't do that, right? I mean, so
that's right.
We don't use
and
worldly wisdom.
what about if that's the calling? What about if that's the calling that, you know, I always thought about Eugene Peterson and how he was called to pastor that church of a few hundred people for 30 years faithfully, yet he's a household name because what he stewarded faithfully with those hundreds, actually God made him a pastor to millions and millions. And I think he was but people might have looked at his size church and thought that was insignificant. It's not about that. It's about what God asks you to do.
That is such a good word.
Wow. It's a danger, really, isn't it, that we use worldly wisdom to do kingdom stuff. And God he tends to, you know, I mean, he has people pour water on stuff he wants to light on fire. All right. So we have to just realize he's a different being entirely, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, I was having this conversation with someone the other day, just even about the way that we measure success in the kingdom. Is so infiltrated by a worldly, you know, mindset. And, you know, I mean, people will say to you, healthy things grow, and that is true, but, you know, cancer grows as well and quite quickly. So just because something's growing doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy. And so we've, you know, even as we've been just building the church over the last 9 or 10 years, really looking at the quality of fruit and the quality of what God is building and what we're part of, rather than just, you know, there's 100 things, probably 1,000 things that we could have done that would have caused our church to grow quicker. Things that we couldn't, you know, if we'd not said, then we probably would have more people here, and, you know, just different things like that. But we just know that we're being faithful with what God has called us to do here, and we want to steward something and shepherd something that's fruitful. It's not just about it growing large, but actually healthy and fruitful.
Yes. Amen. Okay. So would you tell me what the story is behind the name, The Belonging Co.?
Well, I was on a bit of a journey when I actually got to America. I actually felt like the church, Big C church, was broken on some level, which we all know we're broken people within the church, but I felt like the establishment, the leadership, the machine of church had become something that I don't believe God ever intended it to look like.
And this is a bit of a generalization, but
like just for me, this is what I was going through. I'm not just saying this is what's happening. I just had felt like, hold on a minute, what did I sign up to serve? Like, what was it? Because I remember getting radically saved at the age of 11, selling my life out to Jesus, and here I am, just feel like I'm in part of a machine. And so by the time I get to America, I'm like, I think the church may be a little broken because it seems to have more collateral damage and more damage left in its wake that I had seen personally. And I just couldn't resolve this. And I thought about all the hoops and, all the hurdles that we make certain people have to go through in order to be part and have a sense of belonging. And I'm looking at my own family, my extended family, and thinking, well, why haven't they ever been part of the church? And, what? And I just went through this, I don't know, I was just taking stock of, okay, what am I a part of? And do I want to continue this journey? And I remember looking in the scriptures and just being rocked at, firstly, God was saying, please don't hate my bride because it's my idea and it's my church. But instead of looking at its brokenness and all the negative things that we kind of see, the church hurt things, why don't you actually look at becoming the bride that I'm coming back for? Wow. That's your responsibility, Alex. It's not everybody else's responsibility. You have to stand before me. And so I began to study the scriptures and just looked at the way Jesus chose his disciples and the way Jesus began to build this church that now we are so a part of. And he allowed the disciples to belong. They were fishermen, tax collectors, just average, ordinary men. They weren't scholars of the Torah. They weren't, potential rabbis that were wanting to be schooled in that area. And yet he brings them in and he says, you belong as my brotherhood before you even have had a revelation that I'm the Christ. Like, you belong to me before you've believed in me. It took Peter a while to get that revelation that he was the Christ. It took the boys a minute to realize that they were actually walking with the Messiah, but he made them belong. And something just resonated. And I remember saying this to a friend of mine who worked in LA and she was like, what revelation are you going through? And I said, I told her exactly what I just told you. And she goes, and we had just started the belonging. We hadn't had a name. People were just coming to this random basement event and it got weird because it was like, come to this basement. We sing songs and, like it was weird. It didn't have a name. It wasn't a church.
We weren't weird.
We weren't weird. People thought, what is this?
Weird. To be fair, you did accidentally plant a church.
Exactly. Yeah. And so when we needed a name, my friend's like, that's your name. The name of your church is the belonging because you allow people to belong in the house of God before they've worked out all their junk. And when they meet with Jesus, then they change. And you can tell the company side of it, but that's when we were like, and Henry's, you know what he's like, into design, into fonts, into branding.
He's a mad scientist.
Yes, the mad scientist of creativity. So I bring it to him and I said, how about we call our little discipleship group The Belonging? And he sat there for a moment and he's like, I actually like that. I was like, what? This is a miracle. And so we called it The Belonging.
Yeah. Well, and with that, we had talked about for a long time, before we even moved to Nashville, we talked about, we kind of had this thing in our hearts about God, about gathering together, create like a company of creatives that would do, not just great things in the church, but from the church and kind of infiltrate the world. And that, I think that's been something that's always been in Alex and my heart, just to raise up this company of believers who go out and actually change the world through their gifts on their life. And so, we kind of hashing out this whole thing about the belonging, and I'm looking online and the belonging.com is taken, it was some random Swedish metal band or something had it and wasn't available. And so I'm like looking through and then I see .co and I just feel the Holy Spirit say, this is the company that I've been preparing in your hearts.
Oh, gosh.
And I was like, man. And so then we go on this whole rabbit trail of like, the word company didn't originate as a business term. It actually is originally from the 1100s. It's this old French military term that talks about the group of soldiers who
so good.
fight battles together, but they also come in the mess hall and they share a meal together. And I
Hello.
remember reading that thinking, that is
That's
the
the
church.
church.
You know, like we go to battle together, not with each other, but alongside each other. And then we break bread together. You know, that is the perfect picture of the church.
Yes.
And I was like, and also for $12.99 a year, I can get .co. And so that's really good.
So good.
And so that is how the Belonging Co. became a thing. And so
The Belonging Company.
Well, and you do also
And
hear it with ballerinas, dancers, like they accompany.
Yes,
So
it's
it
a
has a
company.
creative bent to it as well,
Yes. Yeah.
which is really
Yes.
sweet.
Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking about that, except I'm not really a ballerina, so I've never really given it that
For
context.
$12.99,
No, I love
$12.99 a month,
So
you can get some
$12.99
ballet lessons.
Actually,
Yeah,
it led us to the greatest thing ever. But it's so funny because is it Belonging Co? Is it Belonging Company? Is it the Belonging?
Yeah.
Is it TB Co? So it is funny.
Yes,
have lots of
D,
names.
all of the above.
All of the above, which is nice to
Now,
have some freedom.
now I have to ask,
Number D.
okay, so obviously God's kind of got you coming to America. How did you pick Nashville? Was that just because of your background in music production, Henry? How did they get onto your radar?
I had been to Nashville quite a few times, and so when we felt God stirring us to move to America, I felt God say Nashville, and I said no. I said, you go to Nashville. We're going to the coast. We're going like
Where
to
there's
the
a
ocean.
beach.
We're going somewhere where it's not just about country music. We're going somewhere where everything's not deep fried, double deep fried. You know, I mean, Nashville 10 years ago was, and you know, it was an amazing city. It's grown a lot, and it's become a lot more cosmopolitan. Let's just say that in the last 10 years. But it was not our first choice, just because we didn't feel like we would fit here, honestly. And so it was a step of obedience. We really wrestled. We actually did some reconnaissance to some other cities around America. And when we came here, even though it wasn't our first choice, we just knew that we were meant to be here. And we're very grateful. We love Nashville, and God has shifted our hearts. And it was actually wild. It wasn't until after we moved that God took me back to a moment where almost 10 years before we'd moved, I'd been here in Nashville, working with a mix guy. We were mixing a record for the previous ministry that I'd been part of. And some people are like the deep intercessory prayer people where they, you know, get woken up in the night all the time, you know, to have those moments. That's not me. I love to pray, but that's not me. I don't very often have those kind of, you know, middle of the night, you know, like God just arresting me. But I'll never forget being here almost 10 years before that, and I was staying in the Hyatt in Cool Springs, and or maybe it was the Marriott, and God wakes me up in the middle of the night with this burden for Nashville and the people of Nashville, and so for about 2 or 3 hours, I'm in my bed weeping. I mean, just like crunched over, crying out to God for him to move in Nashville. And then I pray and pray and pray for hours. And then I just feel like it lifts, and then I go back to sleep. And there's only been a handful of times that I remembered that moment. And it wasn't until after we moved here that I felt God say, wasn't just preparing Nashville, but I was actually preparing you with a burden for Nashville a decade before you moved here. And so, it's been a step of obedience, but we're grateful for it. We wish that there was an ocean here. If there was an ocean, we'd be really happy.
That's funny.
But
You guys.
Jeez.
it's been a fun journey.
You know, we think, and we're going to get to our topic of marriage in a moment, but this is also great. One of the things I said to your church, and I felt last time I was there, I felt so strongly from the Holy Spirit, was there's that verse in John 2 where it says, no one at the wedding knew where Jesus got the wine from that the servants were handing out to the master of the feast. But it says, but the servants knew. The servants knew. And I was talking about, you know, what do servants know that other people don't? Servants know things in the kingdom that other people will never know, the proud will never know. And I felt like God really just gave me a moment for your church that, you know, one of the reasons God is blessing the Belonging Co. as he is, and your leadership and the platform just continues to grow, and his hand of blessings on the music and the books and the conference and everything, is because it's a church full of humility and servanthood.
Yes.
And it's strikingly so, especially in a town known for, you know, big egos, big personalities, big, you know, all of the platforms, big hats.
Big boots.
At the Belonging Co., there is a sense, there's probably pound for pound more gifting and talent than most churches in the world as far as just ability.
Yeah.
But there's also such a sense of servanthood. And I think that unique blend is unstoppable. And that's something that's been just part and parcel of the church from the very beginning, right?
Well, and the vision, like our friend Carlos, who travels the world, and
the
yet
list goes on.
The list goes on. But
you have Grammy-nominated people in the parking lot, parking cars.
Yeah. But how he says his favorite place to be is what? Camp 3 or something on Sundays. And it's like, it is. But Levi said it's stunning.
But that has to be carefully fostered, I imagine, right?
100%. Well, you're looking at our senior leader who actually defines humility and servanthood. And I don't say that just because he's my husband, but it's why I married him. I mean, when we were just
not
friends.
because I was good looking.
Yeah.
No. Hey.
Jennie viewed our marriage as a mission trip. This has never ended. Honestly, that's how it's been. Yeah. She's doing humanitarian work, lowering herself to spend time with me.
You guys are terrible. We love you. We love our husbands. But, that's the thing that was most attractive to me about him, was that he was the first to show up and he was always the last to leave. And yet he was so talented and never once sold his, I can do that. It was never, I've done that. We would have to, we would find things out, and I'd be like, why don't you, you'll be in a room of great men and they're all bragging about their achievements, and you've actually done more things and you just keep your mouth shut. And he says, because that's not my vibe. Like, I just don't like to big note myself. And so the way he has led, that's why people follow, and because it's so ingrained in Henry, and he's taught me how to be a great servant, and he's taught our staff and our team, and so that actually really makes me happy to hear that that's what you pick up, because that is, I believe, the essence. And it's honestly, you look at Jesus, you can't actually be anything else but like him.
That is the foundation of the kingdom.
Yeah.
Jesus came to serve, and so
not be served.
And I think finding the joy in serving, for me, I mean, I love to create, I love to be, doing things, but being able to do that with people and release people and be able to model that together we get to serve. Like, I think honestly, it's one of the greatest joys of my heart is like the thought that imagine what we could do together when somebody's not trying to get out in front of everybody else, but actually together we serve people, together we serve the kingdom, together we serve God, together we serve his people.
Yes.
Like, I just think that's a win, like that sets you up to win, whether your name is ever heard or your face is ever seen or not. The fact that we get to do this together and serve God and his kingdom, honestly, I think for me, it still brings me so much joy.
Amen.
For the first couple of years of church, I drove the U-Haul. We only met on Tuesday nights for about the first 2.5 years of church. And we still have a Tuesday night service as well as Sundays. But I drove the
Which is because
U-Haul.
you had industry people on the buses all weekend on tours, and then come home and they would get to be poured into.
Yeah, Tuesday night was out their Sabbath.
And then they leave again on Wednesday. But I would drive the U-Haul. We would store all the chairs and the PA and everything in the basement of our house, and I would go with one of the guys and we'd pick up a stinky U-Haul in the middle of summer and load that thing up and just every week. And I did it for years until people literally had to come to me and be like, we think we could find someone else that could drive the U-Haul. And I'm like, I mean, if someone wants to, but like, it's my joy, it's my joy to lead worship and to, to preach whatever, and then load that thing up with chairs and drive it home, and then unpack it in the middle of summer or in the middle of the snow, whatever. For me, I love being part of the kingdom of God and getting to serve.
So good.
Beautiful.
Jeez. And it's an example of a beautiful constraint, you could view that as, well, how do we start a church to reach these people in a city? And of course, you weren't thinking at that level. God was.
Yeah.
When they're gone all the weekend, well, it's like, well, hello, you can start a church on a Tuesday. And it's almost an example of like turning a weakness into a strength, really. And it's become a unique proposition of your church from the beginning.
Yeah.
And a lot of people told us that it would never work because, Sunday morning is the only time the churches meet in Nashville. And I was like, listen, we're not trying to make a church. We're not trying to, we're just trying to serve people. That's really what we're all about. And so, Yeah,
strong.
Been our journey.
Beautiful.
Now, we've heard a little bit of the story personally. You know, of course, we know your mom was not sold on Henry at first blush, right?
Yeah.
That's the story.
Yo, that's the story.
Yep.
She had to be convinced.
Do you want me to?
So tell us
she
about
had to
that.
be
But so you were 11 in church.
That's when you were saved?
Yeah, I got saved at 11 and was in the same church, and we then were in youth ministry when I met Henry.
Okay.
So I was probably about 20 when I met you. You were just about to turn 19, and you got radically saved at 19.
Wow.
And then I was about to turn 21 because I'm 18 months older than Henry. And we were like radically impacted by our youth ministry, which then, we became very connected to and became staff members of. But early in those days, we were just youth leaders. I was at Bible college. Henry had just got radically saved, and we became really great friends for like 3 years. And then we both ended up on staff. I got on staff just after just before my 22nd birthday, and then you came the year after. And so we were just the best of friends, and we would hang out all the time, and we were the only singles on staff. So everyone was married, and then there was just me and Henry. So we just would always kind of silo, if we had to go to a meeting, we'd end up driving together, or just because we were the only singles.
Sure.
And we're like, yeah, let's go get pizza, or let's go get lunch, but anyway.
Truthfully, I used to go to Alex about all the girls that I had a crush
That's
on.
actually true too.
She would give me wise counsel.
That's true.
Brilliant.
'Cause he saw me
Kind of get that friend zone angle, and then
friend zone,
Yeah.
and I'm counseling him through all of his girl problems. And so honestly, I had no romantic intentions with him. We were just really good friends. And but I did love him as a friend, because I remember my best friend liked him at the time when we first met. And I got to meet him, and I said, oh, you need to get this guy or get married to this guy, whatever, because he's got a heart of gold, and whoever he marries is going to be the luckiest woman alive.
Wow.
Now, I didn't realize I was prophesying over myself, but that's how much I loved his heart. And I was still getting over a relationship, so I had no margin for a guy in my life, but I had great margin for a good friend in my life. And so 3 years go by, and I start feeling things that I'm like, why am I feeling things for Henry? Like, this is not normal, because we're friends and I shouldn't be feeling these things. And I don't know whether he's feeling those things, but we become really, really close. And we ended up obviously telling each other we liked each other. Well, then I'm like, now, because I'd been on a journey with him, when I knew I liked him, he took a long time to like me. So in that time, I was asking the Lord,
A long time.
is he the one for me?
I was slow, very slow.
He was very slow, but that was good for me, because it really helped me ask the Lord, is Henry someone worth pursuing? Like, am I going to marry him, or is this just, because I don't want to ruin our friendship and we work together, and I just don't want to ruin all that dynamic. So God, if he's really for me, I need you to give me 5 confirmations.
I love it.
geez,
I love
3
it.
times what Gideon asked for, Alex.
Like,
Jeez.
literally, I asked for 5. So I asked for a scripture that literally quickens in my heart, that relates. I asked for a prophetic word. I asked for my leader's blessing. I asked for the desire in my heart to keep growing. Like, God, if this is you, just keep it alive. Like, I don't want it. If it dies down, I know it's not you. And then the 5th one was that my mum and dad's blessing. Because I hadn't done relationships in the past with my parents' blessing, and it just got me into all sorts of trouble. And I was like, this time my parents I need their blessing. So I get all 4 confirmations, and then he asks me out, and I'm like, this is my husband. I just know it, because I've had all 4 confirmations. So when I go home and tell my mum, this is going to be the best. I was like 24 years of age. I walk home after we were at a pastor's retreat, told each other we liked each other. And I go home and I go, Mom, this is it. Like, Henry and I, we're going to start dating. She's like, what? The boy with the longer hair who play the keyboard? I said, yeah, Mum. Oh, over my dead body. No. And she lit, but not just jokingly.
Dying.
She was lit, like, and in her Italian accent, everything. And do you know that she did not talk to me? Like, she gave me silent treatment for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And literally, when nuts. Like she was like, I refuse to look at you, talk to you. And so I call Henry and I'm like, I can't date you until I get her blessing. And he's like, what? Actually, I've never really asked you. When I told you that, what did you think? I've never asked
It's a great question. We're going to find out together, baby.
Here on Hey, It's the Luskos.
The public reveal.
You will find out.
Mr. Bus Driver, move that bus. Go, Henry.
On next week's episode. I think I was a little, I didn't know what to expect. And so I think there was so much of this because since I got saved, I hadn't dated anyone else before. Alex and I were kind of starting down this road. So I think there was a lot for me where it was all new, doing it God's way, if that makes sense. And so I think there was, in all of it, it was every step of it was a little bit of like, okay, what happens now kind of thing, what happens now? And so I don't think I wasn't like crazy shocked.
Because you didn't get mad on the phone.
No, but I was like, all right, well, like we'll figure this out. But I obviously knew in my heart, like if this is going to work, then her mum needs to be on board. Like her parents need to be on board.
So good.
So for me, I was like, we're not going to mess this up. Just going against her parental
Beautiful.
blessing. So
Yeah, and that's right. And so for 2 weeks I prayed and I actually ended up getting the flu and I got really sick. And I ended up having to go move in with my sister and her husband because my mum wouldn't even take care of me.
Stop.
Like
Stop.
And that's
all my fault,
that
guys.
makes my mum sound really horrible because she's very nurturing. And when you're sick, she's got the chicken soup brewing, she's got the bone broth, she's got everything. And so this is how upset she was that I'd even considered dating Henry because of her view of Henry was that he was just a scruffy musician.
And she wasn't wrong. You know, like I was.
Is what it is.
Long hair, didn't wear shoes.
Didn't wear
all the
shoes,
time,
would come in late,
surfer, musician,
would eat Burger King all the time.
just no money.
Red flag. Huge red flag. Yeah. But I think it's so
let's just-
profound, though, that you ask her. And I've heard, you did a teaching on the fear of God, Alex, which was incredible. And you shared the story at length and talked about how at one point you hurt your dad by kind of deceiving him with a guy and just the brokenhearted. What were the words your dad said to you in response when he found that out?
Oh, I can't even remember.
It was something about how disappointed he was. And
oh yeah, he was very angry. I mean, did I share the part where he literally threw the chair in the dining room and was literally so angry? Yeah, I can't remember off the top
He said, not you too.
Oh, that's right. He says, not you too. Because he thought, here's my fourth child is going to go on a trajectory. And it was and that for me, disappointing my dad arrested something in me because he was like, please don't go on a trajectory that's going to ruin your life. Like you're making a wrong decision. So I just couldn't break my parents' heart anymore because I'd been dating a guy for literally 3 years secretly. And because I knew they wouldn't have approved of him either. I mean, I had a really bad track record back when I was broken. I mean, he was a sweet guy, but he was just not living life God's way. And so when it came to Henry, the funny thing was my dad was all for it. When I told my dad about it, my dad was go, oh, that's so fantastic. I'm so happy for you. And then my mum was like, no. And so for 2 weeks, I just fasted and prayed. And I just said to the Lord, not my will, but yours be done. If this is you, you're gonna actually turn my mum's heart around. And in fact, she would pray with her intercessor friend every Friday. And I said, God, speak to her through Lucy. I said, because mum needs to get the word of the Lord in her heart. And if this is you, you'll make a way. Well, 2 weeks to the day, I'm about to go to work on that Saturday morning. And she says, oh, before you leave. And I'm like, oh, she's talking to me finally. Wow. And she goes, I was with Lucy yesterday and we were praying and she had a vision about me. And she said, what's in your heart for Alex is your idea. But God has purposed her husband and the man that she's choosing is the right one. And you need to yield. Wow. You need to yield. And she repents with Lucy. She repents before the Lord. And so she says, and from today onwards, you don't even have to wait. I give you my full blessing. And I just remember getting in the car, calling Henry and bawling my eyes out because I'd watched God do an absolute miracle, which, you got to understand that if we've ever had hard times in our marriage, and we did, I go back to that moment of knowing that God put us together and that God made a way so that I knew this was a union that wasn't just something I manipulated and something that I was doing. And so it was just a really incredible, beautiful confirmation to know, now Henry is the right one for you. And now Henry is literally my mum's favorite.
So good. It's so
Wow.
funny. You
That's
shared that story in
beautiful.
that teaching, and I remember hearing it. I was mountain biking, and I was listening to it, and you're such a good storyteller. I felt it all, your dad's betrayal and sadness, and then, as a father of 3 daughters, it hit me so much. I almost went off the trail. I actually very much almost went off the berm when your dad threw the chair at you. So you almost killed me. Thank you for that. But it's such a powerful story, though, of your, laying Isaac on the altar. Or Henry, as it could be said, and just by the way God honored that. And I think marriage is hard enough. When you get into it, knowing it's God's will, but when you build on a foundation of deceit or on a foundation of compromise, of course God can redeem and do anything, but it is so much better when you build on that foundation. You guys have that confidence of, hey, look, we didn't manipulate this. We didn't deceive to get into it. We honor God. And that gives you, I'm sure that to this day gives you guys both a sense of peace of mind all these years later, all these trials later, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think too, I was just thinking as you were talking before, like before I was saved, I was in a band and I was fronting, like singing in this band, and Alex actually used to come. So her previous best friend's brother was the guitar player from my band, and Alex would come with her old boyfriend that her parents didn't really like. She would come with him to see my band play, if you can wrap your head around this. So I'm like,
but I didn't know Henry.
We don't know each other
at all.
But I'm like fronting this band, long hair, not say. I grew up in the church, but I'm not say. I'm not living for Jesus at this point. And she's coming with her boyfriend, who her parents are not meant to know about. She's coming to see my shows. And then I'm at university at the time, so I would be walking down the street some days to university, and I didn't know this until afterwards, but Alex was working at a law firm at the time, and she'd be dressed in her $2,000 suit, and I'm wearing like basically Walmart sweatpants to university because I'm a poor musician. And she would see me on like walking towards her, and she was so fearful that somehow I would recognize her even though I didn't know her. She would cross the street because she was like, I can't be seen with that guy. So
it's like the Good Samaritan who crossed the other side of the road.
Literally, I'm like long hair, smoking a cigarette, and she's like, I can't be seen.
Did she put money in your bag for your Burger King fund?
He needed it.
That is so funny.
He needed it.
Well, God has a sense of humor, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So how many?
Trusting God in the process. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she would not have ever imagined back then that I would be the one.
How many years married now?
24 and a half.
Yeah, almost 25 years.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
24 and a half.
That is a big deal. And now all these years later, I imagine there are, as you look back on a quarter of a century, which that sounds like something that should be
we are old people. Wow.
Yeah, but that's fantastic. I say bring on the wrinkles, bring on the age. Let's get old together, right? Like wine, it just gets better if it's good.
Yes. Amen. Absolutely.
If it's bad cologne, it's not so much. But what have been some of the most difficult seasons for your marriage? And I imagine there's been some storms that stick out to you above the others.
Yeah. Well, I think for us, it was probably around year 10. Because honestly, when we were going through infertility, it wasn't hard on our marriage at all. Like we never wrestled in that with ourselves. But when we had the children and Henry was working, he was a workaholic. We just did not connect anymore because of his working. I mean, he was working 110, 120 hours a week. And I was enabling that because I thought it was ministry. And what it was doing, it was just eroding our unity and our marriage. And so I've always had a deep love for Henry that will never go. I even said to our church on on the weekend, I'm like, if Henry were to ever die before me, I'm one and done. Like, I won't ever remarry. I will be one of those women that just, this is it. We're just going to go. I'll look after my grandkids and I will serve God the rest of my life. Because I don't think I could love another human. Henry really is my soulmate. He's my everything. So it's not that I didn't love him, but I couldn't live in this marriage knowing how much I loved him, yet knowing we were like living apart. Like there was no connection, and that was more heartbreaking to me because I yearned for that so much. And I'm not the person that's going to go off and have an affair. I'm not the person that's going to go to something else. I'm just going to suffer in silence. And so I just remember that being the huge arrest of our lives. It was probably the hardest thing we've had to walk through, is when I had to just arrest Henry's attention and say, we cannot sustain this life because I can't live at this pace where I don't have connection with you, and I'm going to leave unless something changes. I said, I'm going to go back to my mum and dad. That was my threat.
Yeah.
And it caught your attention. So that was the hard. And you were going through such heaviness in that season. And
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know. I loved my wife, but I didn't know how to show her that she was more important to me than what I was doing. And part of it was because we were in ministry, and ministry was amazing. And you know, a lot of this expectation, it was not necessarily what was being put on me as much as my wrong understanding of what I should be doing. And so there was a lack of maturity in me of understanding that. Also, you know, my validation being wrapped up in that, you know, and genuine love for what I was doing. And so I think I was upside down in my head. I didn't know how to get out of it. And I think that was the hardest thing. And honestly, it felt like the worst moment possible when I felt like I was at my lowest moment. And then my wife came in after I'd just gone to bed at 4:00 in the morning because I'd been up working again through the night, as I did almost every night. And she came in at 7 in the morning and woke me up and said, I love you, but I can't do this anymore. And I was so gutted because I was like, I'm exhausted. I don't know how to get out of this. And I actually didn't know how to change the way I was doing things. And I think that was probably what scared me, as much as, you know, my wife saying to me, I can't stay. The second most scary thing for me was that I actually didn't know how to change what I was doing and who I was, and having to, you know, sit with Alex and say, this might be the most offensive thing that you can ever hear in your whole life, but I actually need help. I need help to change this because I can't do this. I don't know how to not be this way.
Yeah. And I had to submit to that. And this is where I often talk to couples, because that can seem offensive while you've literally lived your life and I've lived a solo life for the last, 8 years. I was like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I need you to put in the work. And I just remember sensing the Holy Spirit say, you were called to be his helpmate. Help him. And I went, oh, this is crap. Like, you book the dates, you schedule and curate all the intimate times of going out on a Monday. You put it in the schedule. You curate the life you want, and he'll follow it. And I did, and he did. And now we don't have to do it like that anymore because, we've learnt the rhythm. But I just couldn't believe that I was angry that I had to submit to that. But thank God I submitted to that, because he genuinely loved what he did, and he didn't know how to get out of it another way. And so I had to help him. So I said, Mondays are sacred. We do not touch Mondays for work. So and then we would, get in a rhythm of sleeping in, because we didn't have kids we did have kids at the time. Sorry, this was even because we tried to do it before, but it never worked. But because we would love to sleep in, go to the movies, have dinner. But we learnt that, okay, we're going to sleep in with the kids, have them hang with us, go have brunch, go do something lovely, get the kids babysat, go and have dinner or go have a movie. And we had to learn that. And you had to come in at 5:30 and sit at the table and have dinner with us and clean up. And like, there were just these rhythms that we had to put in so that we didn't feel neglected, and call each other every day when you were traveling, and all these things that filled the tank so that we didn't feel disconnected. And so
so beautiful, because it really took a humility on your part, Henry, but then also humility on your part, Alex, where you realized, okay, to submit to my husband, I need to help him. I need to serve him in this way. And
to do so, I imagine, with the right tone was key, that it wasn't condescending, because he had exposed his underbelly to you somewhat in that, saying, I need help, I don't know. And for you, we had the right attitude. That could have maybe crushed that sensitivity that he was exposing.
Totally. Because I could genuinely see he wasn't being facetious. He wasn't being, I just don't know I don't know how to do this. He literally weeping is like, I actually don't know how to not work, and I need your help.
Well, I think it's, and it was definitely work, but I think because it was ministry, we were in a ministry environment. And again, I'm not putting this on anybody else. I'm not saying that this was anyone else's expectation. I actually created for them the expectation for me because of what I did do and what I was willing to do. And that was, that became
You didn't know
a trap.
how to change that.
I didn't know how to change that. And because it was ministry, our whole lives in ministry, yes, but I was working on stuff at a church. And so there was that sense of, well, now this is the expectation. I've created this. I didn't know that I'd actually created that expectation.
Well, they were used to the output.
Obligated. Yeah.
Henry was literally writing, producing, engineering, creating 4 albums per year. Gosh. Full albums, and touring, and doing all the design work, and doing videos, and doing, there was never a stop. It was just always, it would just roll on. And I'd be like, so I was always like, when we finish this album, there'll be a moment. I think he missed so many birthdays. I went to weddings by myself. My own father passed away, and Henry was working on an album in another state and wasn't with me. We're talking big things, guys, like big things that it can really erode at you. But I had to forgive him, because that's what love does. And I had to let those things go and realize, actually, I'm here to help, and we can start fresh. And we repented to one another, and then we started a new rhythm.
And made some big changes.
Big changes.
Massive.
Changes.
Well, thank you for sharing all that. I can just sense that, encouraging people, because you two cast a long shadow. God has used you, and people see you from the outside, the sermons, the music, the ministry, the books, and they're like, it's kind of like, oh, they probably never suffer. So to hear people go, oh wow, like that's so relatable. And we don't come out of the womb knowing how to be good husbands, even if we have good parents.
Right.
We still have to figure it out, and every marriage is so unique, and the beats of it, and the call of it, and even like you're saying, the shadow side of servanthood is you workaholic, and you can all blame it on, well, this is because the time's short and heaven's coming and we got to work, and it's like, but the rhythms of rest, and it is sort of is something you have to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's true.
Yeah. And I think, it's been amazing even in this season, not just for us, but to even help our staff in this season, because we love to create as a church. We love to do things. We're mindful of what we do, but church life is church life. So it is busy at times. But helping our team, really prioritize the best they can their Fridays and Saturdays, because that's how we roll here at the Belonging. Our team have Friday and Saturday off, and just encouraging that space on their weekend to just relax, unwind, rest, and build into their marriage with their families, take some time together. Beautiful. Because, that was the thing that really was almost the end for us. And what a disaster it would have been, like what we would have missed out on if we'd allowed that to play out as the trajectory for our lives.
In this season, how do you guys maintain that connection? Do you have what maybe some hacks, some Seeley hacks have you found that help you today? And of course, I'm sure as your kids are a little older now, it looks different. When the kids are to the people with toddlers, you just survive. Okay. This is a reality,
just
right?
Have grace for yourself.
There's a season that feels like it'll last forever, but it really doesn't.
It's
right?
so true.
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't, guys. We have a daughter in college, and she left this year, and it felt like a death, because you literally are not prepared for your child to leave your
I feel
dwelling.
ripped off, man. I feel ripped
And
off.
at such a young age, and even though she's only an hour away and we see her every Sunday, or, you know, like it's still the fact that she's not under our roof anymore.
Wow.
And 19 years went, and we got a bonus year. We got the gap year, you know, but she's 19 and it went so quick. And so now the rhythms are a lot easier actually to spend time together. And I love that we do work together. But, you know, we date night together and we spend a lot of time together. And so I feel like as long as our conversation and our intimacy of how we cultivate that, what fuels both of us and how we receive love, as long as that's being taken care of during the week, we actually have a huge capacity to work, but we've learnt the rhythms that most nights we are in bed together, just loving each other, like chatting and watching a series or just being together. Like we could even be doing things that we love. Like he's been working on some music separate to church and I've been working on my little finance thing, but we do it together. As long as we're together, you know, we love to go out and eat. So we make sure Wednesday nights are our date night. And then the weekends we love to have brunch with our kids and we have lunch every Sunday together as a family. And then we eat dinner when we can every night at 5:30 with the family. I know now with Holly it's gone, but with Taylor we still maintain that. And so we've just got these beautiful rhythms and we holiday together, you know, and I think that's like this week we're going away and that's the stuff that I think is really important.
Yeah.
Strong.
So strong.
It looks different for every couple. You know, as we've been talking to different leaders we respect, it's been amazing the wide range of what it looks like. But what have you found for the two of you helps to keep you in sync spiritually speaking, weekly or daily or, you know, more irregularly than that?
I mean, I think we share about what God's speaking to us about. You know, I know some couples love to do devotions together. That would be my wife's worst nightmare. She's like,
it just doesn't work very well.
It's so refreshing to hear pastors say that, right? Because you have a certain expectation.
Yeah,
because my intimacy with Jesus far surpasses. I don't want to share it with anyone.
Yeah.
That's me and Jesus.
Yeah.
Totally.
And so I think we ingest the Word of God in different ways. You know, we pray in different. Prayer is prayer, right? But you know, Alex loves to go in the bedroom and pace up and down.
I'm more intercessory. You're more contemplative.
Yeah, but I get in the car and I'll drive, and that's where I pray a lot because then I've got no distractions.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not thinking about something around the house that needs to be fixed. I'm not thinking I need to go down in the studio and make that last edit to that thing that needs to go off to, you know, all that stuff. So I think from that point of view, we don't do our devotional or our prayer times together. There are moments where we definitely do pray together when there's things that we're walking through, you know, with our family or even with each other. Like, you know, we want prayer to be our first response. And obviously with church. But I mean, I think
we discuss a lot. So
we definitely
our
share.
Spiritual, especially because we're leading the church at a spiritual level. So we're always, what are you sensing even about our staff? Like where do we head here and where do we need to take the church here? So we're always having those conversations, which honestly is not work to us. Yeah. And so that's one thing I feel like some ministry couples are, keep your ministry life and your personal life separate. Well, I can't because my ministry life is my life and I don't see it as work. Now, the day-to-day business stuff and the meetings and all that, yes, but the heartbeat of where the church is going spiritually, like, you know, we always share not always, but majority share what we're going to be preaching or where we want to take the church, because we don't do series at our church. Wish we could. We're not as smart as you guys.
Levi.
But
he's the planner.
He prepares. I wish I could, and you maybe need to give me some life hacks on how to prepare a series. But I think that's what we are constantly involved in and very intentional about that and leading our church and our team like that. So, yeah.
That's so good and refreshing. And I love that the Henry's persona non grata in your prayer closet. You're like, you're not welcome here.
Yes. Henry's name with the
I know my
circle
place.
and a cup.
No Henrys allowed in.
No Henry, no dog, no kids. They know.
When I hear the stomping, I know that's not the time.
Ooh, those are angry prayers.
She's in
Those
prayer.
are imprecatory psalms.
But my kids can come in at any time. It's so sweet because my kids have learned that they always have access. No,
not me.
Nothing else gets preference. That no ministry situation. If they need me, they're there. But they'll always be polite. Mum, can I? And yes. And some days I'll have like tears running down. The music's cranking, but that's what we do.
Well, you guys are brilliant. Last question. This is just a fun one. What's the last time, as a date or on a holiday or anything, you did something together that you had never done together that was a surprisingly fun thing to do? Parasailing, chess. What's the last thing you did together that was like, this is bizarre, but could be a fun date night?
Wow, our date nights are pretty boring, aren't they? But we love
boring.
them.
They're special to us.
They're special to us, but we not
I
anything
wouldn't say they're
adventurous. The last time we ever did that is when I took Henry, who is afraid of heights, and I'm talking high heights. I took him ziplining.
Used to be.
Yeah, that's true. You overcame that.
Oh.
We went ziplining in Colorado above the Alpine, like. I don't even know how many hundreds of feet we were above.
That's scary.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget you doing that. I was so proud because it was something that we just don't ever do. Like, we're not those adventure people.
Yeah.
And we did it because I love ziplining, and I loved that date. That was.
Did you love
best.
it, Henry?
Yeah. I also just made sure that I prayed the sinner's prayer twice before I went up there. Just in case I wasn't already saved.
Gotta get resaved
somehow
real quick.
I got
Just
backslid.
Be right
in the
back.
moment
Got to go
where I
listen to a
was-
Billy Graham sermon, and then I will join you on the tower.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Because
terrifying.
it was
but it was
literally
good.
the best.
Terrifying and liberating at the same
You
time.
conquered a fear.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
And what an allegory for life. Well, next time, listeners, you find yourself in Nashville, Tennessee, please do come swing by the Belonging Co.
Please.
And for everybody else, there's always YouTube and Spotify and the new Belonging record. And man, just you guys keep creating, keep going. Jenny's wearing your shirt today.
I just need to tell you, you guys are so sweet to send us T-shirts.
Maybe the best merch ever. Did you see that Robert Madu preached in that shirt this Sunday at Elevation Church?
He
he did
did?
not.
He sure did.
I did not see
He was
that.
peeking out of his
That's
cardigan,
amazing.
but I recognize
Okay, well, this is one of my
that mock
favorites.
turtleneck. You can tell. You can see whoever's hand that is was sneaking out of his cardigan there.
Yeah, that shirt is fantastic to wear.
I love it. So
I get
thank
compliments
you.
on it every time I wear it.
All we have is merch. We send you guys merch. What you guys send us, honestly,
Yes, are the greatest gifts on
have
the
no
planet.
idea. Just-
we always feel so like,
these guys sent us a mini chainsaw one day, and you wouldn't believe.
Do you know how
had
much
a
we
moment-
used that?
We had a moment. Well, we had a moment where a tree came down, and the chain on my main chainsaw had come off and wouldn't go back on, and we had to use that thing to save us and get us out of the driveway. You saved our lives.
Oh my
You literally saved
goodness.
us
The
from
prophetic
starving
gift,
to death.
Thank you,
Wow.
We would
God.
be dead if not for you
I
guys.
love that. You never can have too many chainsaws lying around. It's really my motto. Oh gosh. Well, we could continue, but we want to send you on your way
guys,
with
we
blessings
love
and
you
love. And
guys.
thanks for sharing all your wisdom and your
Thank you.
beautiful faces with us today.
Yes.
you're the best. We love you.
Love you.
And
Thank you guys so much.
We'll see you soon.
Amazing. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. And be sure to swing by LeviLusko.com to see what's going on in our world, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. In the meantime, we would love to connect with you on social media. Jennie and Levi Lusko, out.